Glad that you guys could join us. We have a rather interesting show tonight. Tonight's show, we have again returning for a second time Barbara from Harlem, new to the virtual after hours with After Dark with Rob and Andrew. Joining us is Judith R. Robinson, and of course, our regular co-host, that's Small Town Andrew, guest hosting Heather Robinson and BB Diamond. Now, before I bring them out there, I'll bring them to you so that we can start our conversation for the hour. Have you guys been watching the news, council culture, everything that's going on? It's like everything is being canceled just about. I mean, first we had Aunt Jemima, she was canceled. Mr. Potato Head is canceled. The Muppets, Paw Patrol, even Peepaw the cartoon, and it's a cartoon, it's being canceled. Before long, they're going to cancel Caillou, a kid series, Babar the elephant. Everything is offensive nowadays. I mean, if you walk outside and don't say good morning, you could possibly get canceled. How did we get here? This is America. How did people become so touchy and so sensitive that we now have to cancel everything? Look at the whole fiasco with The Bachelor. Now, I wrote a piece about it this weekend with the host, Chris Harrison, apologizing for what? I don't know. But he apparently gave in to the woke crowd and he's apologizing for being a white man. Apologizing for being a white, apologizing for being a man, or both. Now, apparently he, gave in to the woke culture and said, hey, I defended this contestant on the show and I shouldn't have done it. No, he apologized. Only now we found out that what he's apologizing for, Barack Obama, the first Black president in 2008, invited a group from Alabama celebrating antebellum homes. I think they were called the something maids. He invited them to his inauguration. And in his words, he wanted to celebrate them. Go figure. It's all crazy. So I'm wondering, do we now counsel Barack Obama? I don't know. But, we're going to talk about it tonight on the show, amongst other things. We're also going to talk about Meghan Markle and her awakening once she married Prince Harry. Folks, you don't want to miss this show. There's a lot to cover, so we're going to jump right into it. So I'm going to start off by welcoming my co-host at Small Town Andrew. Andrew, how's it going?
It's going great, Rob. How about yourself?
Good. BB Diamond, how's it going?
It's going well, and I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Heather Robinson, how's it going?
Great, Rob. Pleasure to see you as ever.
Yes. And now our two guests. Now, you guys must know that Barbara is the mother of. How's it going?
Everything is wonderful, great, and I'm so happy to be back with you.
Glad to have you. And our second guest is Judith R. Robinson. She is the mom of Heather Robinson, joining us for the first time tonight. Judith, how's it going?
Oh, it's just fine, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, well, we're glad to have you here also. So, what did you guys think about my opening statement about council culture and everything that's taking place? This is 2021. And I don't know about you, but I mean, at any moment, I feel as if though I could possibly be canceled. No, I was canceled on Twitter for speaking the truth, myself and Andrew and BB Diamond. But when does it stop? What is this all about? What are your thoughts on it? My two guests tonight, Barbara from Harlem and Judith R. Robinson. Through the eyes of experience, please tell us.
My take is that it's anti-American, and that's the whole thing, the impetus behind all of this. They hate the founding of this country, which we are founded on Judeo-Christian values, ethics, and principles. So they're doing everything that they can think of, which is insanity, to try to say that there's so much wrong with America that it has to be canceled. Mm-hmm. And you know what? The big thing about it is that they have big mouths.
Mhm.
And they have the media that supports them. You know, we need those big outlets, those social media outlets like Twitter and all of those places. They cancel us out if we speak the truth. So we need to develop something that our voices can be heard, because we are the voice of reason, we are the voice of logic, and we are the voices of sanity.
Yes, I agree. Judith,
Yes.
your thoughts?
Yes, well, it's a sad state of affairs, no question about that. I think that many, many, many white people feel the burden of the past. I think, you know, there's this horrible legacy of slavery. Whatever else there is to say about it, it was a terrible wrong. It was a horrible wrong. And I think many of us, it's not hard to tap into white guilt. People are very sad about that. People are very sorry that happened. And I know many, many well-intended people who don't think that they'll ever make that right. They are they have horrible guilt, and it's very easy to tap into that. Very easy. We want to be better people. We want to be fair. We want to make up for the terrible mistakes of the past. And it's easy to tap into that. It really is. This whole woke thing is predicated on the idea that white people feel so bad. They'll do anything to undo what they think has been a tragic error, a tragic mistake. It's hard to argue with that. I hate this woke thing. I think it's very unfair because it's very Orwellian. It's sweeping everything away, good, bad, or indifferent. It comes out of great negativity. And I don't think anything that's predicated on so many negatives can actually succeed in the long run. I think it's going overboard, but it's like a pendulum, you know, it's swinging very hard one way, and inevitably there'll be a reaction. I know there will be. But there's all kinds of well-meaning people who are very frightened not to be, you know, part of the virtuous ones, part of the ones that want to make amends. This whole Dr. Seuss thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think it's ridiculous. And I think there are people that are recognizing how far afield it really is. But as far as the Dr. Seuss enterprises and people who want to look like they're the virtuous ones, they'll do anything. You know, they feel the pressure. They want to be on the right side of things. There was a very interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal just this week by the gal that does the children's books reviews. I think her name is Gordon or Gorman. She said that Dr. Seuss Enterprises is giving in to these demands, and they're taking the Dr. Seuss books away, not all of them, or whatever, five or six of them. And she said, what a mistake that is, because
It is.
if you do that, her analogy was such a good one. She said, if you're being chased by wolves and you throw a piece of meat to the wolves, they're not going to stop because they know they got you. Why would they stop? They know, you know, it's not going to end.
It keeps going.
That's the risk. You know, the more people just don't stop and say enough, the worse it's going to get, because as I said, for my first point, you can't imagine the depth and breadth of white guilt.
Right. And that's what they're playing on. And
Yes.
no, Barbara, you had mentioned
Absolutely.
there's a chapter in your book where you were saying, thank God for slavery. And when you
Yes.
came on the show the last time, a lot of people were asking, you know, what exactly did she mean by that? So I think that what Judith just said, it just feeds right into you explaining that chapter in your book, you know, thanking God for slavery. Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, because without slavery, and then the basic thing we must remember is that God was on his throne even during that time.
Mhm.
God himself allowed it. So if we stay in a state of, oh, slavery is so horrible, how can we acknowledge the fact that we're always talking about how good God is?
Mhm.
Now, out of slavery, which was horrible,
Horrible, right?
good things came out of it. I
Oh, yeah.
base that on the story of Joseph in the Bible.
Mhm.
Joseph himself was sold into slavery by his own brothers. He was sent to Egypt, where he was put in prison, and different things happened to him. But he rose to a high position there in Egypt. And when his brothers and his father needed food, needed help, they were able to go to their brother. They didn't know it was their brother who was in charge. But then when they realized who Joseph was, they became very frightened. But Joseph told them, you don't have to fear me, because what you meant for evil, God meant for good. So
Right.
I base that on God meant slavery for the man designed it to be evil, but something good came out of it. What good came out of it? I was born here in America. I don't need a green card. I don't have to cross the border illegally.
Mhm.
And then my ancestors made it possible for other people from different countries whose skin color is darker than even mine. We opened up the passageway for people from Africa, from Haiti, from Jamaica to have access to the good in America.
Mhm.
The sacrifices that my ancestors made were not in vain. And you know, all of this white guilt, they play on that. They never talk about the white people who use quilts to do secret messages, helping my forefathers and foremothers escape from the South and go to the North. It was white people who helped make sure that that Underground Railroad was there. It was white people who put their lives on the line for the freedoms of Black people. We don't even talk about that. We let these Marxists, we let these communists who hate the founding of America beat white people up with white guilt. There's nothing for you to be guilty of, because we learned how to serve a God that allowed it. Phyllis Wheatley came over here when she was about 7 years old as a slave. She became a Black poet in America. And she said, 'twas mercy that brought me from my pagan land. So yes, a chapter in my book is Thank God for Slavery.
Mhm. What are my other panels? What are your thoughts on it? BB, Heather,
Wow.
Andrew.
Powerful, powerful. Both of you authors, Judith and Barbara from Harlem, very powerful. And I agree with Judith when she said
Yes,
that the woke culture is Orwellian, and it
yes, it
is
is.
impacting our freedom and our liberties in the United States. And Barbara's take on slavery, I have literally never heard anyone use Joseph, his story in the Bible, as a lesson as to how we can handle slavery. Yes, slavery was evil, it was horrible,
Yes,
inhumane. But the good that came out of it is that we are here in the greatest country in the world, and we can use Joseph's story to understand God's plan in the end. We may not understand it, but we
right.
understand it in the end. So powerful, both ladies, both authors, very powerful. Thank you.
Can
Yes.
I just add one little thing?
Sure.
The one thing I wanted to add is that the Bible tells us in 2 Timothy that all scripture is given to us for reproof, for instruction, etc. So that means that story about Joseph is there for us to look at it and
Mhm.
see how he was able to tell his brothers, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. Because when Joseph was in Egypt, God was with him. When those slaves came from Africa over to America, God was with them.
Right.
That's it.
Good. Heather, you have any thoughts?
Well, I just, just mostly listening, really, Rob. I feel it's overwhelming to have such wonderful talent, two matriarchs here who I love and see that. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that slavery was something that was in any way. Although I understand, I think, Barbara, that you're not saying it came from God, but that
No, but he allowed it.
of it, that God is always present, even in horrible things that I don't believe
Absolutely.
God wanted. But I think of the Holocaust too, and the way, even though I don't believe God caused it, I don't think
No.
God wanted it, I don't think it came from God any more than slavery did. Israel did grow out of the ashes of the Holocaust, so maybe there's an analogy there.
Yes, the dry bones came alive in
Mhm.
1948, and look at how they've been thriving.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, just like since the beginning of cancel culture, a lot of people said if you erase history, you're bound to repeat it. And people, especially on the left, need to stop being offended by everything and just live with your lives and take what you hear with a grain of salt.
Right. So just speaking about cancel culture, as when I opened up, did my opening, and I'm glad that Judith reminded us of even Dr. Seuss. And in 1961, Dr. Seuss is one of the, stood behind civil rights, wrote letters of wanting all people to be treated equally. And now we're at this point where, I mean, some had said that the publishers or his family decided to throw those books out there out of fear that eventually people were going to start looking at them and say, oops, let's cancel Dr. Seuss as a whole. So they wanted to get ahead of the ball game by saying, these 6 books we're not going to print anymore because we find that they're racist. Well, at that time when they were done, people thought nothing of it. But of course now, in this political atmosphere whereby we're going and we're looking at everything that everyone said, and based on what they said, we're going to cancel them. I mean, we'll be counseling just about all of our
Everything.
history.
Right.
I even look at, like I said, you look at Dr. King. Dr. King was not a perfect man. Okay, and some would even say that he was a womanizer. Are we going to go and cancel him because of the past indiscretions that he had, or are we going to look at the good that he brought and say, okay, we're looking at this, as opposed to trying to prove a point? Because I'm telling you, if we do it, eventually we're going to cancel all of the prophets in the Bible, everyone in the Bible, because we're going to find something wrong with them. We'll be counseling the Bible, which is what they want. Eventually, the Old and the New Testament, we will find something in it. Some people say, well, the Old Testament is misogynistic and we don't like the people. Look at how they treated women. Look at how Joseph treated his women, his daughters. So eventually people are just going to start just counseling everything that we hold dear. And I think that is the intention. And then eventually it will be the Bible and then the Constitution.
Yes.
It's like they're trying to just purify history, and you can't. As I've said before, history is ugly, it's dirty, it's not perfect, but it's our history. And we have to learn from history. And if we're constantly trying to clean it and wash it out, we will never learn. We will repeat history. And I'm so afraid that at this point, we are starting to repeat history because we're forgetting the lessons that we saw in World War II with Germany and the Nazis and the Jews, and trying to silence speech and trying to take out different things that they didn't want to hear, or they didn't understand, or they didn't care to understand it. But they look at a particular group of people and say, okay, these people we don't like. Look at what they're doing to white people. They have to apologize for being white. Like when I opened my statement, when I came on, I said, look at the guy, Chris Hansen. He comes out and he apologizes on ABC for being white and not understanding what he was saying. I looked at his interview and I'm like, what did he say that was wrong? And then the person who was interviewing him, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, was Michael Strahan. He interviewed Chris Harrison, the host of The Bachelor. And he was saying, I apologize. And, I don't, what I said, I didn't realize what I was saying. When I looked at this, I'm like, okay, he apologized for what I don't know. Once he's off the camera, Michael Strahan goes, I don't think he was sincere, and I'm not buying it. Michael Strahan, who was a professional football player, who about a decade ago was going through a nasty divorce for cheating on his wife who was white, cheating on his wife. And when she sued him for alimony, he claimed he didn't have any money. Lying now. I mean, this was like played out in the public domain. So now, some decades later, he's going to stand in judgment and questions a person's motive, his sincerity. This is like La La Land. I don't get it. Judith, you wanted to add something.
Well, yes, two points I wanted to add. I can never get over the irony in these situations when you think about the so-called liberal values. What they're inflicting on us is censorship. They're cutting into our freedom of speech and expression. Right. That's the ultimate irony with this cancel culture. Cancel could be just another word for censor. Yes. They're trying to shut down all the voices that don't agree with them. Right. Absolutely. It's so ironic. And the other point I wanted to make is a positive one. I think things like this are pendulumatic. I think it's very possible that, for example, with the Dr. Seuss books, I read that on Amazon, since all this stuff, this cancel stuff started, the books are flying off the right. Amazon shelves. People are trying to buy them while they can. You know, there's been, the truth of the matter is the media in this country promulgates so much of this. The real people in the country, I think, know better. I do. I think that, you know, the half the country that voted for Trump also sees the truth of in this whole situation. They see the censorship, and so that I think that we can really hope that this doesn't go on forever. I guess that's my main point. I think enough people are aware enough of how ridiculous and contrary and negative all this is, and that's it. That was my point. The irony of the censorship, most,
and that's a valid point. Like
absolutely,
the pendulum, it is swinging. It will swing backwards and forward.
Absolutely. And I would just like to add to that, you know, the bottom line is these are godless heathens. Mm-hmm. They're trying to eradicate God out of our society totally. That's what they hate about America. They love the opportunities here. They love their paychecks, but they hate the fact of we were founded on Judeo-Christian values. They hate the Constitution because the Constitution was made for moral and religious people. So these godless heathens, they come up with all of this dark ideology that really doesn't make a bit of sense. Mm-hmm. And that's why sometimes I don't even like to refer to them as liberals, because to me, a liberal means live and let live. Well, they don't believe in any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they used to, Barbara. Don't you think at one time?
They've changed totally.
Yes, they everything has become, it's like down the rabbit hole, you know? Everything that, you know, it was day is night and night is day. It's totally reversed. It's just simply reversed.
Well, and that's
think,
a good point.
Can I just make one point? I think the election of Obama for 2 terms opened up the door to all of this insanity, because he was a godless heathen, and we elected him not just once, but twice.
Right.
And we see all of these godless heathens coming out of the woodwork and letting you know who they really are. They don't even try to disguise it like Clinton did.
Right. Well, something that you both said that Judith brought up first, and I think is a very valid point, is that at one point, as I hear a lot of this, they say that the Democrats are liberals of today aren't the liberals and Democrats of the Kennedy era. They say they're completely different. You know, now I wasn't born, you know, during that era. To me, when I look at them, I put them all in the same bucket, which is not fair. But they say that the Democrats then, if they were to come back and see the Democrats of today, they would be shocked.
Absolutely.
The Democrats today are more like socialist and
Marxist. Yes.
Right. Than Marxists. They don't have the same values. So, Judith, that's a very valid point.
Yes,
that you're making, that they aren't the same. So
No.
how do you think, you and Barbara, as like, again, the subject tonight was, through the eyes of experience, how do you think we got here? Barbara is saying that when Obama came in, it just opened up the floodgates. But I mean,
I believe so.
how did we get here, and how can we go back, or is it too late? Is it the pendulum that you're talking about, Judith?
Well, I think one of the game changers, in my experience, is the 24-hour news loop. Media. I think the media in this country, with the exception of Fox News, and I know that Fox News, I worry about how long they'll even be able to exist.
Mm-hmm.
There's a terrible bias in the American media. Outside of Fox News and the Wall Street Journal, there isn't even journalism anymore. It's the handle of the Democratic Party. It's the handle of the Democratic Party.
Right.
And they are, I mean, you talked about this Meghan Markle situation. I thought to myself, watching that girl and her husband were subject in the British press to what Trump had to deal with in our press.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the media has so much power and so much say that they have changed reality. Marshall McLuhan was probably one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century. He said the medium is the message. The power of that flashing light in your brain, that message that comes through that television 24 hours a day, has the ability to distort reality. I remember reading long ago, if you knew the world just from your own experience and you weren't constantly besieged with all the bad news and all the negativity, would you be as afraid as everybody became? Everybody's terrified of everything. Would you be as afraid? I think the old saw is, if it bleeds, it leads. Mm-hmm. They only tell you the bad stuff, and they only push their own agenda. That in my lifetime has been what has changed. They have changed reality.
Right. That's a very good point. I mean, because you look at the 24-hour news, nonstop. But since COVID, the China virus hit, the only thing CNN would focus on were the people who were dying, and that those who weren't dead, you're going to die. They don't focus on the people who have gotten the virus and are better, and they're moving
recovered.
On.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, think about it. Look at those who have recovered. We barely talk about them. We're always focusing on the dead. And if we don't make that number, it's like, oh, well, it's going to be there soon. And I'm like, well, wait, let's celebrate the living. It's unfortunate that we have those who have died. I mean, similarly, going back to what you were saying, Judith, as far as the 24-hour news cycle, things that are happening now, they say, oh my God, can you believe this took place? He said this, he said that. But when you look at history and you look at the past presidents, one in particular, Theodore Roosevelt, you can see the similarities. Theodore Roosevelt was loud, rambunctious, up. But the media would tell us, oh, we've never seen anything like this before in our lives. Right, you haven't, and you're not reporting on it because you want everyone to think that someone is like Obama, who just lets everything roll right over it. That's not who we are. Everyone who gets into that house, the White House, they make it their White House, their presidency. He can't copy his predecessor. He has to be himself. But the media would lead you to believe, or led so many to believe, that what he's doing is immoral. It's unbelievable. Look at what he's saying, and he did this. But it's like, you guys didn't exist back then. So you're reporting on things that you don't know of. And because people are slaves to the media, slave to the propaganda that they're putting out there, they don't know the difference. Look at what happened in the election of 2020. When they hid information that people were completely unaware of. Most people are completely unaware that Operation Warp Speed was because of Donald Trump. Most people are completely unaware that he said, hey, we're going to get this out there, and we want to waive a lot of the requirements. We want to push it. People are completely unaware. And even Joe Biden came out the other day and said that we didn't have a vaccine when he entered the office. He came out and said, oh, we didn't have a vaccine. Oh, when we came in, things were just in such disarray. He lied. Well, he either lied or he's suffering from senility. I think it's a little of both. But
Yeah.
people don't know this because the media is not putting it out there. They're silencing those voices. A lot of folks were completely unaware of Hunter Biden and his whole fiasco with China. Unaware of the Joe Biden, what he had done in Ukraine. Unaware that they actually spied on Donald Trump. They don't know this because of the 24-hour media, along with the big tech. They're able to pick and choose and decide, we want you to hear this, we don't want you to hear that. And that is extremely dangerous. When you have a media that's cherry picking what we are hearing. The other day I was watching, I think it was C-SPAN, and Senator Ron Johnson was questioning a member of the intelligence community. And he said, the day, January 6th, the so-called insurrection, how many shots were fired? And she said, none, other than the one whereby the woman was killed, Ashley Babbitt. That was the only shot fired. But the media and Nancy Pelosi will tell us that they were coming to take down the White House. How can you take down the White House and overtake the Capitol when you don't have guns, military artillery, you don't have trucks and armed gear to do it? And to this day, people are still saying, oh, they were going to take it down. They were going to take it down March 4th. They were going to seize control of the White House. And now they've moved it to March 20th. It's a lie. I mean, we think we should fear the people that are coming across the border than fear some insurrection of the Capitol. People, do you see big trucks coming down the streets of people armed, getting ready to take over the government? Do you see how ridiculous this is?
But
It is
Rob,
ridiculous. But they have captivated the minds of innocent people into thinking that, yes, someone wanted to comment.
well, you know, Rob, as they breathe, they lie. You know, it's a thing with the Democratic Party. They lie all of the time. And you know, I used to work as a teletype operator back in the 70s. And I used to work for I worked for two New York newspapers. And it was back in the 70s as a teletype operator, I saw everything that was coming in from the war over there in Vietnam. And then I would see, after I gave all that information to the editor, in the morning, I would see what the editor put out for the people to read. Since the 70s, I have not purchased newspapers because I knew from my experience of working for two newspapers that they printed lies. I was so happy that our President Trump came out and called it what it is,
Yes.
fake news.
Damn. Yeah.
Well,
But since the 70s, I
Right.
don't buy newspapers. My children can tell you, they never saw me buying newspapers. Never told them to go to the store and get me a newspaper because I knew that they were lies. As the Democrats speak, they lie.
Wow.
As
Yes,
they
Heather.
breathe, they lie.
well, I was just going to put in a little plug, even though I don't disagree with you ladies in the broad sense, to just say that the New York Post is a newspaper I write for sometimes, and I write for
Okay.
Jewish News Syndicate, which is a wire service. And I can say, you know, in the case of both of those publications, they do a lot of good work. And
Good.
people like to dismiss the New York Post as a tabloid and a junk paper, but they're
But it
the only
isn't.
ones doing real news when it came to the nursing home scandal. One of my friends, Dory Lewack, her reporting was outstanding. If it hadn't been for the New York Post, we'd know nothing about Hunter Biden. And, you know, the
Good.
so-called tabloid of America
Yes.
has been
Yes.
doing more real news reporting and commentary than you know, the so-called New York Times.
Well, no,
So-
Heather, I agree with you.
There
The,
are exceptions, yes.
right,
Yeah.
the New York Post, and I think
Yes.
that they have been recognized as being one of the third largest papers that are out there that are speaking truth to power. But you have
Yes.
all the others that don't do it. I mean, like you said, they want to dismiss them as being a tabloid, but you look at the Washington Post and the New York Times. I mean, that's the tabloids. They're the ones that are tabloid, yellow journalism. They print out, come out with a headline, only later on in the day have to retract it because of the lies. Look at Russia collusion. Look at all the lies they told.
Lies.
And then when the New York Post printed the article, excuse me, on Hunter Biden, what did Twitter do? Shut them down, kick them off. because they
Yes.
didn't want that information out there.
Yes.
Silencing the truth, only wanting
Yes.
what they want out there. And again, a lot of people to this day, believe it or not, are completely unaware of Hunter Biden's dealings with China, are unaware of the things that Joe Biden has done with China or any of his family members. And that is a shame. That information like that would have and should have affected the election, the outcome, people were denied. And now look at what we have here now. Look at our border. Look at the country, the voters, this act they're trying to pass, HR 1, voter registration, the Equality Act. Look at what
The
we have
equality,
gotten.
right.
Look at
right.
what we have gotten ourselves into. It's a shame, and people are wondering what happened. And then you have Joe Biden, who doesn't even know what he's doing from one moment to the next, doesn't even know if he's supposed to be talking on Friday. He and Nancy Pelosi were talking, and then he opens it up for questions, only to find out his staff cut him off. I mean, this is extremely dangerous. We have not had a State of the Union address. Where is the State of the Union address? It is March, and no one has questioned that. No one in the media has said what is going on. Okay.
No, because they know what's going on. Number one, his presidency is fraudulent. They know that too. They
Right.
know that the fix was in. That's why Nancy Pelosi said if Donald Trump won again, she would retire, because they knew the fix was in. They knew about those rigged machines. They knew that they would be transporting ballots in there that they marked up for Joe Biden, because number one, Joe Biden couldn't beat even a community organizer. Joe Biden couldn't have a rally that you had 1,000 people attend.
Right.
They know he's nothing but a Trojan horse.
Yep.
His name was familiar with the people. He's done nothing in 47, 48 years, and he's unfit.
What bills has he passed? None whatsoever. What has
Only
he done?
locking up black people.
Exactly.
That's what he did.
Andrew, did you have any thoughts?
Nope, just that I agree with what Barbara from Harlem was saying just now, in particular about Joe Biden being an illegitimate president.
Yes, he is.
Guy could not even draw 20 people to a campaign rally, but they expect us to believe he got 80 million votes.
Absolutely
Unbelievable.
lies.
And he did all of this in the basement, and even now, Andrew, he's in the basement. I mean, where is the State of the Union address? I've been waiting for that.
For what?
I've been waiting for him. And no
I
one
mean, it
has
won't
said
be
anything about
anything.
it. No one has said anything. Phoebe, what are your thoughts?
BB,
Oh, they're looking for me.
yes. She stepped away for a moment.
Oh, I'm
She'll
sorry.
be with you in a few seconds.
Judith, did you have any thoughts on it?
Well, as far as Biden's concerned, I do agree with you. I can't accept that there was a legitimate election.
No.
Of course, also saw something lately about it's not un-American to question election results. This certainly isn't the first time that's happened. I do believe that Nixon beat Kennedy, and the fix was in at that time too. It was pretty clear that Kennedy's father, through the mafia, bought the election in Cook County in Chicago, and Nixon chose not to pursue it. And I actually believe that might have fed Nixon's paranoia, in later years when he did become president. He knew how corrupt and how, unfair these election results could be. Well, I don't think Biden won. I think Biden was, he's like a puppet,
Right.
he's a puppet. And actually, I think he's trying to hold the line a little with the extremists in his party. The radical left is pushing him hard. I'll tell you the truth. I hope he doesn't falter completely. I hope he doesn't fall apart with dementia or drop dead, because I'm really afraid of Kamala Harris.
Right.
I think that God only knows what would happen if we had to deal with the likes of her.
Right.
So Biden is a sort of a almost tragic figure to me. He's kind of being propped up, and he's like a
Propped up,
shell.
exactly.
I mean,
Right. No,
you know,
well,
he
Barbara,
feels
I'm sorry,
actually-
Judith, something that you said,
Yeah.
that I think that I would like for you to just talk about a little more, and I think you and Barbara both might be able to, is that it's during the Nixon years, like you said, that, you know,
Yeah.
many people said that Kennedy, you know, that election was stolen. So even
It was.
then, the Democrats were stealing elections. And I've heard about it, and I've been intending to do some research. But like you said, that affected Nixon a great deal when he was in office, realizing that, you know, initially they had stole that election from him. You care
Right.
to just
That's
give us some more insight on that?
Well, I think it's been, you know, it ties in with the Kennedy assassination and
Mhm.
all of that. There's a lot of material, you know, let's face it, all the records of the assassination are sealed till everyone that was alive then is gone.
I wonder why.
You know, well, sure, obviously.
Right.
There's, you know, there's a great deal that goes on
Yep.
in government that, you know, I sometimes feel that we on the right sometimes look and wish to know more, but I get a sense of it being like the tip of an iceberg, really. There's so much we don't know. There's so much, you know, you hear about the deep state and
Right.
that sort of thing. I do believe that that whole story of Kennedy and the mafia and Chicago and buying the Cook County votes through Daley, that's been documented in a few people's books. There were a couple there, you know, there are lots of books that there was a woman called Judith Campbell Exner, who was the lover of John Kennedy and Sam Giancana.
Right.
That was the connection. Sam Giancana was a mafioso. They shared the same woman. I remember I was just a kid at the time, but this woman was still living. Her name was Judith Campbell Exner, and she was a guest on Phil Donahue's talk show. And she was dying of cancer. And she came on and she talked about everything. She talked about her connection. She was, you know, that kind of woman. She had a physical, sexual relationship with both these men, and they connected through her. And she talked about how she knew the election was stolen. She knew everything. She knew how the mafia helped him get elected. And of course, the real story went on with Robert Kennedy. When they came into power and he was the attorney general,
Yes.
it was the hubris of Robert Kennedy. He turned on the mafia. If you remember, or if you've read about it,
Yes.
he
yes,
started
yes.
investigating the mafia. It was as if he wanted to erase that whole thing. He wanted to erase the connection. And in this country at that time, you just didn't do that with the mafia, and we know the result.
Right.
We know Kennedy was assassinated.
Absolutely.
and they had I don't know that they were the only actors, but they were part of it. The mafia was part of the assassination of Kennedy. There's no question about it.
Yep.
That's true.
And this woman talked about that in great detail. And she was, it was a situation where she wanted to clear her conscience, I guess. She was dying and she wanted to reveal what she knew. And she
Right.
was very credible. And she was, I remember vividly watching it.
Well, I think it's just like today with the whole thing with the election of 2020. There are so many things that we
That's
don't
right.
know that they're
That's
that they don't want to tell us.
That's
The
right.
same thing with Russia collusion. There are so many players, but I mean now
Yeah.
with the 24-hour news and being able to see bits and pieces of things that have been released, we know that actively Obama's administration spied on then candidate Donald Trump. We know that Obama knew about Hillary's emails. We know that Obama knew that there was no Russia collusion and that Hillary started it. We know a lot of that stuff. But when will it get out there for public consumption so that people will see that, hey, they've been lying to us? Look at Christopher Wray. He had information about Hunter Biden's laptop when we were going through this entire phony impeachment. But they kept that information, which is extremely dangerous. That these people, they're supposed to be government officials, and they're holding back information. Now, going back to Obama, I don't know if you guys saw just recently, apparently he said during the primaries that Pete Buttigieg could not be president because, for one, he was too short, too young, and gay. Now, are we going to cancel Obama now? What is the media going to say about that? Obama apparently told.
He'll say nothing.
Right. They'll just like.
I mean, the media has always supported Obama, regardless of what he's done.
Mm-hmm.
His support of Planned Parenthood, his support for same-sex, whatever you want to call it, all of this stuff, the media has always supported him. I mean, the media, for the most part, most of the media, and there are exceptions, are very, they're leftists.
Right.
And it's a lot of propaganda.
Yep.
So, we have to learn how to do our own research. And that's very valid about the Kennedy and Nixon administration and all of that. And and there were probably cheating during that election, too. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
This election, we had videos, we have testimonies.
Right.
We have evidence that those Dominion machines were rigged. The algorithms in them were all rigged and all. We have all of that.
Right.
Videos, people talking about how ballots were being stuffed into suitcases and transported here, transported. That's valid and very strong evidence that this is a fraudulent election.
But you know what, Barbara? We're told, as Judith pointed out, that we can't
Absolutely.
talk about it because if we talk about it, we're going to get canceled. We're in trouble. If we
We're going
talk
to be
about
censored.
it, right? We're going to be censored. They're going to come after us. And as Katie Couric said, we need to be deprogrammed.
Absolutely.
Why should we be deprogrammed? Bibi, do you have thoughts on it?
Yes, thank you. You're absolutely right, Rob. The left in this country, they are Marxists. They don't believe in they don't believe in freedom of speech. They don't believe
No,
in
they
our
don't.
Constitution. And when you're talking about deprogramming, that's a very strong and powerful word because it's literally
Absolutely.
been used in communist China and other countries.
Absolutely.
You know, what the Uyghur Muslims are undergoing right now, they're sent to detention camps and they're being deprogrammed so that they will support the communist government of China.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes.
So
and China.
it's a totalitarian concept of taking human beings and brainwashing them so that they believe what the government is telling them. So when the media, members of the media say things like this, they don't believe in the First Amendment of the Constitution. And it's very dangerous for Katie Couric to have said that. I take that very seriously. But I thank God that we have the Second Amendment in this country because we will not be like the Chinese peasants of the late 40s and 50s and even now who can be forced into detention camps and brainwashed and tortured if they don't obey. It's very serious when the left in this country, you're right, Barbara, they're really not liberals right now.
No, they're not.
At this point, they are leftists because they don't believe in freedom of speech. And that's very important. Thank you, Rob.
And you know what? We're only a vote away from something like that happening. If they've started canceling everything, you can wake up tomorrow and the next thing you'll know is that what you thought you had, you don't have. And I say that about this entire China virus when we were under lockdown. And you look at Texas now, they're saying they're going to open up and that you don't have to wear your mask. And liberals are going crazy. Oh my God, you got to wear your mask and you can't open up. Okay, if you want to wear your mask, wear your mask. They're mad at Florida because Governor DeSantis, who had the wisdom and the knowledge to be a governor and a real leader and not run on fake news CNN and talk about I'm single and ready to mingle with a nipple ring and not go and chase after women and make his staff feel uncomfortable, had the wisdom to say, no, we're going to do things differently. While Andrew Cuomo was on the news talking down to people,
Yes.
you got to do this and you got to say this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
women, not the women on my show, because I think the women on my show are highly intelligent, but other women were falling for this. Oh, we want to marry him. And then men started calling themselves Cuomo-sexuals. I don't get it for the life of me, only to find out that while all this was going on, he was a terror in his office. He was ruling Albany like a wild man, going after staff members. Now, some will say, oh, well, this is alleged. I agree, it is alleged. But if we go by the Democrats' playbook, all women must be believed. If we go by the
That's
Democrats'
true.
playbook, he must resign. If we
Yes.
go by
Live
the
by the
Democrats'
sword, die
playbook,
by the sword.
yes. If we go by the Democrats' playbook, these women, what they're saying is the gospel, even if they can't remember things specifically, like the professor who was accusing Kavanaugh. If we go by their playbook, he should resign. But what is he saying? He is an arrogant person, and I am not going to resign. Why?
That's right.
Because he thinks that he has more power and he is better than anyone else. And think of this. This time last year, when we were in the thick of this China virus, whom the media still refuses to call out, not the Chinese people, but the government. The government gave this to us. They are yet to call them out. But when we were in the thick of this, what was Cuomo doing? He was out attacking the
killing
president.
seniors.
Bingo! Attacking the president. Killing
Yes.
killing
That's
grandma
right.
and grandpa. And then
That's right.
trying to hide it. He wanted to hide it. And then
Yes.
going on fake news CNN and talking about he's single and ready to mingle, writing books, getting awards while people were dying, attacking Janice Dean of Fox News, telling her she should shut up and just give the weather. And that was okay? This is dangerous. And because the media refused to question him and to challenge him, this is where we are. And think about it. When they were saying, wait a minute, what is going on with the nursing homes? No one wanted to even touch Cuomo. Oh, and the point I wanted to make, this time last year, 2020, they were even looking at maybe we can get rid of Joe and put Cuomo, make him the president, put him on the ticket. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is how sick these people are.
Well,
That's
you
what-
know,
Go ahead, Heather.
I think it goes to show how dangerous it is for the media to be monolithic.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Clear conflict of interest of having Chris Cuomo cover his own brother
Yes.
at prime time in the midst of a national public health crisis like that. It's a perfect example of why you can't have a media that, as my mother so eloquently said, is the arm of one party. Because
Yes.
a lack of oversight and accountability. And look, we don't know, I think we don't know for sure exactly what went on in terms of Cuomo's decision making. It appears to have been a terrible decision,
Yes.
whether it's rises to the level of criminality or not. I mean, that all needs to be investigated, but something should be investigated rather than swept under the rug. And when you have people, Democrats, automatically hero worshiping him, you have the media in his pocket like that. It's just how can there be any kind of objective, take on it? And I think that the Attorney General of New York, whatever her, motives or whatever, I think that
I don't trust her still.
No,
Well,
she's not
but I
to be
think-
trusted.
Well, but if she hadn't done a straight job with the investigation, I mean, you guys can see it was like a runaway train. I mean, nobody was stopping Cuomo. I mean, there was no
True.
examination of this. So whatever, whoever she is or isn't, at least she, being a Democrat, had the Democrats couldn't keep digging in and refuse to look at this the way they've done with so much, whether it's the election irregularities
But Heather,
or
Heather, let me ask you this. Why do you think, and there's no right or wrong answer, why do you think that Letitia James, who swore to go after Trump, she was elected because she's saying that she was going to
Absolutely.
bring Trump down. Why do you think the tables turned and she decided to look at Cuomo? But she didn't have to. She could just like gloss right over this.
Right.
But why do you think?
I don't know, Rob. Maybe she's personally ambitious, but
Yeah.
the bottom line is she did do the right thing here.
Oh yeah,
I don't-
absolutely.
I can't speak to her motives, but I thank God that she did, because I think if she hadn't, he'd be completely getting away with this.
True.
Whatever it is he did. And again, we don't know exactly. I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day who's a fellow conservative who said, well, you don't really know. I mean, the early days of the pandemic were confusing. They were terrifying. What was no. And I mean, it seemed to me the one thing that was known is that this virus was especially deadly to the elderly. It seemed a very boneheaded decision on the part of Cuomo. But again, I think it should all be investigated, including the craziness of, it seems under stress that President Trump sent so many federal resources to New York. We've talked about
Right.
the
And they
the
didn't
Navy
use them.
ship and setting up the Javits Center, which was staffed by the military. It always seems very fishy to me that there were not more questions being asked about why those resources were drastically underused. And maybe there are some explanations, but the media, other than the New York Post, has not been aggressive about that. And I think there should be more work on that, including just, I mean, life is number one, but the vast spending of must have cost, I would think, millions upon millions of dollars.
Yes.
Why is Cuomo not being asked about that, and about, in the climate of everyone, all hands on deck, being told to shut down their school, their business? If they go out of business, it's too bad. No inconvenience or expense is too great for the average person to do everything they can to save every life. In that climate, why was more not tried to find better arrangements for these people, these seniors, when there were resources provided? I mean, to me, that just seems like the elephant in the room, and probably what more people should be asking.
Right.
Right. Meanwhile, they're killing babies while they're shutting everybody down. I
That
didn't
cannot
stop.
wrap my arms around it. The abortion clinics remain
Yes.
open. They shut everyone down.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
close the abortion clinics. And again, I look at how they viciously attacked Ron DeSantis, because he did
Yes.
not close Florida down completely. How they attacked the governor, Christine Noem of South Dakota, and how they attacked the governor of Texas. And these are red states. And you look at the blue
Right.
states, those states that are suffering. You look at California. We had a young lady on the show the other day who possibly run to oppose Cuomo. I'm not Cuomo, but Newsom. If there is a recall, you look at what he did to California.
Right.
And, the media seems to be okay with it. Why aren't they calling out these governors? Why aren't they calling out these blue states and say, hey, guys, you screwed up? Her name is Rhonda Fearon. And she was talking about Newsom, what Newsom had done to the state of California, and how he's being propped up by Silicon Valley and
Right.
the teachers union. And speaking of the teachers union, look at what they're doing to our kids. They're being
Terrible.
paid. They're still being paid, and they don't want to open up the schools. I want my
Right.
taxpayer dollars back. I want my money back. And no one has said anything about it. We're just wandering around happily, like, oh, it's okay. It's like, are you guys serious? But this is the Democrats' playbook. They don't care about this.
Yes, it is.
They don't care. They're selfish. They do not care. I was looking at social media and some of the commentary about the schools and about Cuomo, and people were saying, well, we don't agree with what they're doing, but, the teachers union, they're doing their best. No, the heck they aren't doing their best.
No.
And then they said, well, Cuomo, yeah, he might have done this, but, we need to leave him there. Like, are you serious? Again, this is a mindset of these liberal Democrats. It's like,
Yes.
it's okay. And they're not, as you guys are saying, they're not even Democrats. They're socialists.
They're programmed.
They're programmed. Yes, socialists.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the United States cannot cannot survive in a socialist environment.
No, it can't.
It's unfortunate that no one is standing up to these people and saying, hey, the buck has to stop. Andrew Cuomo has told us that he is not going anywhere anytime soon. They will have to drag him out, clawing at the doors of all
Yes.
because he feels as if though he is the person who should be there. And when you get that mindset, you can't think outside of what you have done, the damage that you've done psychologically.
That's
And
true.
I'm not a doctor. I think that you're disturbed. There's something that's going on. The madness of King George, we have the madness of Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo. That's
Definitely
right.
the madness. Anyone else care to
Yes.
weigh in?
Well, I just think it's shocking that Andrew Cuomo would hold daily meetings, daily press conferences, and yet he really wasn't challenged. He was awarded with an Emmy
Mhm.
by Hollywood, even though he endangered thousands upon thousands of senior citizens by throwing in COVID infected patients. And Janice Dean of Fox News, both of her in-laws died in the nursing home, and her husband could only see his dead mother through a glass window or something, she was saying. And that's what really drove her and is driving her to hold Governor Cuomo accountable.
That's
He's
good.
been an arrogant jerk throughout this whole process, not even talking to the businesses, not even we're trying to help small business stay in business and the churches and synagogues and mosques. No, just close everything down. He and de Blasio have been horrible. They've been arrogant and tyrannical. And I hope that Governor Cuomo is forced to resign because this is absolutely outrageous. Yes, the Chinese government, not the Chinese people, gave us COVID-19, but it was the Democrats who exploited it.
Yes.
People have committed suicide. Businesses have been lost. Family businesses that have been in business for decades lost. Children not in school, and for a lot of children, particularly in the urban areas, school is where they get a hot meal a day. They don't witness any violence. They get structure and discipline at least for those 6 hours. What the Democrats have done has been incalculable, but
It
we are
has.
strong and we'll come back like we did after 9/11.
Yes, we will.
Thank you, Rob.
But you're right. You look at, they're now saying about the children that are coming over here across the border and the adults, they're coming in with COVID-19, the China virus,
Yes.
and the media is downplaying it. That is extremely dangerous because you don't want us American citizens to go out. You want us to stay inside with masks on, but you're allowing them to come here infected, spreading the germs and the viruses and God knows what else. You're okay with that. People, there's something wrong with this. Our own government is trying to kill us.
That's it. That's it. While they're
I
trying
mean, I
to tell
just hate
you,
to say it, but they are.
but that's the truth. That's the truth. You just laid it out because how could you love or be protective of a people when you're letting people come in that you don't know their medical history, you don't know their criminal history, they don't care. As long as they get another herd of victims that will keep them in office, that's what's important. Your life to them is not important. And that's very
And that's
obvious.
dangerous.
If you're going to close the churches, close the schools, but continue to perform abortions, have the liquor stores open, have drugs being dispensed, what does that tell us?
Right. I mean, as someone just said, why do we have open borders, but the Democrats want us to
Absolutely.
shut down?
Right.
We have borders around the Capitol, but the southern borders are wide open for anyone
Right.
just to walk in and say, I want to come in and I want Joe Biden to let me in. And okay, come in,
Yes.
sign a couple of papers. Now you promise us you're going to come back within 60 days. Okay, and then we never see them again. And then
Of
this
course.
whole lie, right? This whole lie about, well, we have like 11,000 DACA and we want to make them citizens. No, folks, think about it. 11,000 when Obama was in office in 2008, and it was more than that then.
Yes, it
Okay.
was.
And in addition to that, think about it. These people got married and had children.
Absolutely.
So 11,000, and the people that are
can't-
coming in
right.
at the border, that is a lie. There are millions of people that are waiting for citizenship. They will
They
come
don't care.
in.
They
No,
don't
they
care.
don't. They
No.
will come in and be granted citizenship, or will
Yes.
come in and will see entitled to everything that we as Americans should be getting, but we won't get it. They will be moved to the front of the line. You have people that are coming here legitimately going through the
Yes.
process, but we want to push them at the front of the line. And why? Because of the vote. They think that they will vote Democrat. This is dangerous.
Absolutely.
This is something that the Democrats have put together, and we need to push back. Push back on George Soros. Look at what he's doing with his money and getting in all these crazy radical attorney generals, okay, and district attorneys. Look at California. Look at what this guy is doing in California, letting go criminals, hardened criminals.
Yes,
He's
yes,
letting
yes.
them out of jail.
They're
What is the
lawless.
guy's name?
The Democratic Party is
Complete
lawless.
lawlessness. He is
Yes.
letting them out of
Yes.
jail. And for what? Why is he so concerned about the lawlessness and not people who are obeying the law?
They're twisted. They're twisted in their heads.
Completely twisted. I mean,
Yes.
there's no other way. There's no other way of saying it, because why would you allow an individual
Right.
who has killed and committed a crime? Why would George Soros want to put money to get people like that elected, knowing that their agenda is just to, hey, let them out of jail, let them live amongst us? Do you guys not see the problem with that?
They want to destroy America.
Well,
They want to destroy our country.
I see the problem. I wish you people, I wish there would be a kind of coherent plan, some way to deal with this on a large level.
Yes.
It seems to me that I don't think that I've heard a single point tonight that isn't very valid.
Right.
You're absolutely, all you people understand the reality here. It's just the puzzle is what to do about it.
Absolutely.
What in the world is the intelligent conservative position? How do you get that out? How do you, I mean, this is one way. This is a wonderful forum.
Yes. Yes.
I,
Yes.
I really can't say enough about it. It's wonderful. And I hope there's a good sized audience for it. And the challenge, I think, is to inform a greater number of people of this reality, which we all understand perfectly. You know, what more can be done? I guess that's my big question.
Well, that's a good point, Judith. And I'll tell you something that Bibi said on Barbara's show this weekend, Our Urban Story, is that first I'll say, you're right. A forum like this, we have these forums so that we could get the truth out there, so that people can hear alternative news as opposed to the fake news that's put out there. Okay.
True.
But the other thing that we have to do, and I thought this is just that hit the hammer on the nail that Bibi Diamond said this weekend, is that we're preaching to the choir almost.
Right.
Because we
Right.
know what has to change. But we have to bring in that these broadcasts are seeing not just amongst ourselves, but to other people, so that we can open up their eyes, because so many people are completely, believe it or not, unaware as to what's happening.
That's
Do
true.
you think the people who did
Absolutely
legitimately,
brainwashed.
right? Do
Absolutely
you think that the
brainwashed.
people who actually voted for Joe Biden was aware of his crazy agenda? No, they
No.
weren't aware of it, but now they're seeing it and they're in shock. Something that Barbara from Harlem shared with us, excuse me, is that she's still a Democrat.
Yes.
And by remaining a Democrat, she's able to go into those venues and strike up
Yes.
a conversation and talk to people. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to. Us talking amongst each other is great. We need to do that so that we can keep each other, on the same line and say, hey,
That's true.
we support you. We need to come out here with our ideas and say, hey, did you hear this? But when we do it, we have to make certain that we share the broadcast feed. We bring in other people. We tell people, look, you might not agree with us, but listen to what we have to say. And if you want to participate, feel free to do so. We're not going to attack you because, as they say, the old adage, you attract more flies with sugar than vinegar. But we want to expose people to this because it has gotten to the point that we're at critical mass. Judith, you're
Yes.
right.
Yes.
We're at critical mass, and it's very dangerous. What do we do? How do we go out there? How do we, excuse me, we can't convince people, but hopefully we will talk, they will listen, and their eyes will be opened.
Amen.
Because a lot of people, their eyes are closed and they're completely unaware as to what's happening at the border. They're completely unaware that their speech, their freedom is being taken away when they were able to shut down. You think back again, it was a year almost to this month that we were shutting down. President Trump was
Yes.
so reluctant about shutting down.
Yes.
Because once he shut down, he said, we got to open up. We got to open up. When he
Right.
did it, the media and the left, they were excited. They were thrilled. Like, oh, we shut it down. But he knew that it would be the devil to open up. And every day he kept saying, we've got to open up. We've got to open up. Our economy is transactional. We can't be shut down. Look at all the restaurants that have gone out of business. Who has profited?
Yes.
Big box stores. Amazon,
That's true.
Target, Walmart. They profited.
That's right.
But look at the small mom and pop that keeps the engines
They're
moving,
gone.
keep the engines going.
Right.
They're gone. And why? Because the Democrats refuse to open up. Look at the red states. The red states are doing well. But the
Yes.
blue states almost demolish their economy
Yes.
because they
Yes.
want to keep things shut down. And as I said before, think about this. When you shut people down and you take away their basic freedoms, you take away their ability to provide for themselves. And when they have nothing else, there's nothing to go to. And when someone comes in and says, I will help you out, I will give you a helping hand, and they give it to them. And they give them a little more. All the while, when they're giving, they're taking away their freedom.
Yes.
You can't go to work. You can't go
That's
to church.
right.
You can't do this and you can't do that. And by the
Mhm.
time they realize it, they have sold their soul to the devil.
That's true.
And
That's
the
true.
devil is not going to give it back. And that's what is happening right now, unfortunately. We are locked in, we're shut in. I think about the funerals that people have had. Loved ones couldn't attend. Loved ones couldn't be at the hospitals when someone was dying. They had to die alone. Weddings had to be canceled. Schools closed. Everything is online. I'm like, are you serious? People can't go to a loved one's passing to celebrate the person. Of course, the dead person doesn't know it, but to celebrate that life, to bring in, I've heard of stories where husbands couldn't be in the room when a kid was born. This is horrible. But if we keep this going on, people will say, oh, this is normal, and they won't miss it. We can't hug each other. Look at our children growing up in a cold society. We thought that being on the computer was making them cold, but imagine not being around other kids.
That's
this is
true.
what's happening to our society. We're becoming cold and uncaring. We're becoming like the Nazis. We're becoming like these third world countries. We're becoming like communism. We're becoming socialists, and it is dangerous.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Excellent
But look,
point. Excellent
when
point, Rob.
but when the Democrats have a funeral, when they had the funeral for George Floyd,
Oh yeah,
no mask,
no mask.
no social distancing. The laws are different for them than they are for the American people.
Mhm.
No,
Double
absolutely.
standards.
Absolutely.
Yes.
George Floyd had like 3 or 4 funerals.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying obviously the way he died was tragic, but he was no hero. He was a drug. I don't want to go
Absolutely
into
not.
his background,
Right.
but people couldn't see, they couldn't attend the funeral of their mothers and other loved ones. This was absolutely unfair. It was like the standard for the Black Lives Matter and Antifa folks were different than for the average American. We couldn't
Absolutely.
have a funeral, but they could have. When John Lewis died, I believe it was Congressman John Lewis, you know, they
Yes.
could have, if he could have a funeral, but people, average Americans couldn't have a funeral. So it's not right. You know, it's like the Democrats are on a different level, or they're treated differently. There are 2 tiers, it seems to me, and it's not racial. It's not black versus
Right.
white. It's the Democrats and the leftists versus the average American. They can get away with what we cannot get
Yes.
away with. That's how I see it. It's
Absolutely.
not black and white. It's the left versus the rest of America. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And period. And to your point earlier, Rob, about all the rioting, the destruction caused by Antifa and Black Lives Matter, we hardly heard any condemnations. But on January 6th, they're trying to blow this up into something that it was not. It
That
was
it was
not an
not.
insurrection. No one was armed. It wasn't right. I'm not agreeing with it.
Right.
But they're trying to use that to condemn not only Trump, but those of us who are supporters. And we know that Antifa infiltrated the group that went up on the Capitol. We don't have to go into that, but there's a double standard in this country, and
There
it needs
is.
to be addressed. Period.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good point. Good point.
Right.
Anyone else care to weigh in?
Well, just that, it's interesting. I mean, I don't necessarily think that the shutdowns were political in nature, but I do hear you all and agree that there were all kinds of double standards in play. One observation I've made is that the people who were really very condemning of people for worshiping, talked about everybody's right to protest. People who wanted to worship didn't like the protest. It was like whatever anybody wanted to do, they submitted that was essential, and whatever someone else wanted to do or needed to do, that was wrong, selfish, terrible. You can't go. I mean, there wasn't a lot of fairness or uniformity.
Not at all. That's right.
These regulations were imposed, and I do think that the shutdowns, look, it's complicated. I think that there's been a terrible toll on us from COVID, and yet it still is far less than the worst case scenarios that were projected, which were going to be deaths in the millions. So I hesitate to condemn the shutdowns entirely. I think the big, really the heroes of this time, the kind of unsung heroes, maybe for political reasons, are, President Trump, Vice President Pence, who I understood had a leadership role in Operation Warp Speed. Media doesn't have much to say about that. And the big pharma, which gets a lot of negative press. They've really saved the day in a lot of ways, because I think that the vaccines are what's going to end this, not the shutdowns,
Right.
not little pieces of cotton over the face. Not that I'm against anything that can mitigate, but that was never a permanent solution. And I think that there's been a real sort of an under-emphasis on how important Operation Warp Speed has been, and how, despite
Absolutely.
a mountain of opposition, President Trump and Pence and the scientific community have gotten it done.
No, that's a very good point. They
But-
definitely played it down. Go ahead, Barbara.
But the thing about this is that I'm sure that your mother and I have lived through many flu seasons. We have lived through flu seasons every year of our lives. And we never had a shutdown in America because of a virus.
Mm.
When Obama was president, we had H1N1.
Right.
We had millions of people who were affected. Thousands died. No shutdown. Prior to back in 1968, we had also a virus. What was it? H3N2, something like that.
Uh-huh.
Now, there was no shutdown. So to be honest with you, all of this shutdown stuff really had me somewhat perturbed, because when such as Lysol, bleach, etc., I'm saying to myself, this is not the bubonic plague. I didn't believe Fauci when he said 2 million people would drop dead in the street. I thought he was a fake Fauci. And then what also got me was the high recovery rate. When you have a recovery rate, I think it's 97 or 96.7.
Right.
I mean, that means you're not going to have people just dropping dead.
Right.
When you had the bubonic plague, they had to burn up the bedding and all of this stuff. None of that was true.
Bingo.
Mhm.
You
Well, I
see what
hear
I'm
you.
saying?
I
Right.
hear you,
No,
but
and not only that, Barbara, like you said, it
was exaggerated.
Rate, right, the survival rate, but they scared the heebie-jeebies out of everyone. People were afraid.
They did.
I remember walking on the streets with 2 little 7-year-old boys, and when the
Yes.
older people approached us, they would run to the other side of the street. And I thought it
Yes.
was hilarious. I'm like, are you serious? But people were afraid because we didn't know a lot about it. Dr. Fauci, whom the media just
He
like
was a
heralded
liar.
being this like, and now we know that he was a politician.
He's been there since 1984. And
And
he
he's
was
the
there
highest paid government
when we had the
employee.
swine flu and Obama was president, and you didn't hear a word from him.
Not a word. The Ebola
Not a
virus.
word.
Ebola
Well,
virus, and not a word.
Well, these,
Not a
you know,
word.
I hear you, and it's so much is perspective. I mean, you know, and you are a courageous matriarch, Barbara, as is my mother, my wonderful mother. You know, thank God, you know, we're getting through this, and you know, we've taken precautions, and I think that's important. But you know, I knew early on that you know precautions would be important, but that I knew my mother wasn't going to stop her life, and you know, thank
Absolutely.
God. And that you know, I think that it's true. This was a uniquely severe bug. I mean, more contagious and more potentially deadly. It was really deadly to the frail, the very ancient, the sick, people with underlying.
Sweetheart, but can I just
Yeah.
say this right now? I went
Mhm.
up to a hospital and they wanted me to take a COVID test. And I
Mhm.
saw people my age there. And I said, oh boy, here we go. And
Mhm.
guess what?
Hmm.
They came back with a positive result for me, right?
Mhm.
Really?
This was on a Monday. I found out on a Tuesday. On a Thursday, I went and had another test at my primary care physician. And
Yes.
guess what?
You were
That
fine.
was negative.
Well, so you had it, and you kicked its
I
butt.
didn't have it. I didn't have it. These people lie.
Yep.
So you
How
never
in the
had it.
world could I have it and be cured of it in 3 days?
Because you're tough.
No, I'm not that tough because I have other issues. I got high blood pressure. I got this, almost everything on that pre-existing list I have.
Well, you kicked it anyway, and
No, I
thank
didn't
God.
have it, darling. They lied. I knew when I saw those people in there who were on walkers and my age and stuff like that, I knew it would come back positive.
Mhm.
Right.
Wow.
I
But
knew
see,
it.
that's the problem. I've heard so many people say the same thing, that they went
Yes.
in for the test and they were
Yes.
told that they had it, and then
Right.
and
Probably did.
not wanting to believe it, they had another test to
Yes.
see if they had it. They had the antigen test. They said, no, you never had it.
You don't
And
have it.
when he questioned them and said, well, but this, you know, doctor said that I did have it. And they said, well, maybe they didn't run the right test, you know, but you don't have it. You don't have any of the antigens, and there's nothing in your body to show that you ever had it,
Right.
you know? So it's,
Well,
It's a
again,
moneymaker.
Well,
As
you
a-
know, I have a doctor friend who believes that most of us have had it. I mean, in other words,
I've heard
I'm
that
not
also.
disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is whether you believe that some of these are false positives, or
Yes.
whether you believe it's not that bad a virus for most people who get it, that we pass it. I mean, that's what I have a doctor friend who believes that. I mean, he just thinks that way more people have already had it than even realize, and that for most people that the fatality rate is actually lower than what we're hearing, because that's only people
Yes.
who've been tested, not
Right.
everybody who's had it, who hasn't been tested, who hasn't caught it and had the test right when they had it, as opposed to after they recovered. So if you believe that, then maybe I don't know. I don't want to oversay, because I'm not a science person, and but I will say one thing too. I do think it was dangerous, and we needed to be careful. But I think that there have been, a lot of viruses. I mean, there's tons of viruses.
Yes.
I'll tell you, the HPV virus
Right.
is very widespread and really went wild in the 90s. You know, most women have it in this country at this point. It's now come somewhat under control because there is a vaccine for youngsters. But, my understanding is for quite a few years there, tens of thousands of women and men were dying of cancers that came from HPV all through the 90s and the early 2000s. And look, I mean,
And we didn't shut down.
an eyelash. This was the Sex and the City era, when people were watching TV and being told to be promiscuous, and there's like virus rampaging. And I know people who died of cervical cancer, anal cancer, that came from or got very sick. I guess what I'm saying is, no, it was not as maybe deadly to as many people as COVID, but it was sure deadly to a lot of people. And
Well,
not
no,
only was
I mean,
it shut down,
right.
nobody even stopped like and thought about, well, maybe the society should be less promiscuous. Maybe we should start taking more precautions.
Less
No,
promiscuous.
whatever, HPV, it's nothing. I'm just saying that, there is a big difference in how certain
Oh,
things.
absolutely. And I think I'll say, I agree with all the points that are being made, is that, and to me, we didn't know what this virus was, how it would affect us. So President Trump,
Yes.
did as a leader should,
Yes.
he closed the country with reservations, but he immediately said, we have to open back up. The sad thing
Yes.
about it is that the Democrats knew that this was their opportunity to keep things
Right.
shut down, along
That's
with
true.
the media, to scare people as they did,
Yes.
and then to control the elections by voter mail-ins. And
That's
that
correct.
was, and everything else.
It
just
was
like
all a
this-
setup.
Right, and it just
Yes.
started snowballing down. So I
Yes.
want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. This has been a great discussion. I want to thank Barbara from Harlem for coming in. I want to thank Judith Robinson for coming in. We definitely appreciate your insight. And like I said, through the eyes of experience, that was the title of our show tonight, Through the Eyes of Experience, because I
Amen.
wanted you guys to come in and to share, as you did, your experiences and your thoughts, because you've seen so much being writers.
Yes.
And you hear a lot. As a writer, that's one of the things that you do. You sit, you listen, and you take notes. And then you think
Thank
about it,
God.
and then you put it out there. So I really appreciate the experience that you guys have and that you brought to the show tonight. It's invaluable. We definitely want to have you back.
Well,
I'm
thank
putting up
you,
your
Rob.
information on the screen tonight, right now, where people can buy your books on Amazon. Definitely
Thank
support
you.
them. You definitely want to do that because they are true patriots that we want, as I said, we want to spread the words. In addition to that, I'm also putting up our GoFundMe page so that if you would like to contribute to us so that we can get on other platforms, it is expensive. And as you know, some of the platforms that we were on, we've been kicked off. Why?
Mm.
Because of discussions like this, having these open discussions and getting people to think, which is a dangerous thing for the right. They don't want, I'm
Yes.
sorry, the left. The
left.
They don't.
Yes.
The left. They don't want people to think. They want to think for you. The media, the liberal media, wants to think for you. The Democrats want to think for you. They don't want
Absolutely.
you to think outside of the box. When you're
Amen.
unable to think for yourselves, they're able to tell you anything, as they have done, as they did with the virus, as they've done with the election.
Absolutely.
And we here at Mega Media After Dark, we want you to have that free thought process. We might not agree with it. Sometimes we won't, but you are entitled to think and to form your own opinion. So if you would like to support us in our cause, please feel free to donate to our GoFundMe page. And again, thank you all for coming on and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom. One more time, I want to put up the information for Judith Robinson. Here she is here. See her on Amazon to get her books, as well as Barbara from Harlem. Great women of faith, great women
Thank
who
you.
have a voice,
Thank
who are
you.
out there making it happen all the time.
Thank
Are
you
there
so
any
much for
closing
this
remarks that
opportunity.
either of you would like to make?
Well, I want to thank you, of course, and I want to say what a pleasure it's been to be in your company of intelligent, honest people. It's delightful. Thank you very much.
And you both must come back again. And we're thinking around Mother's Day. We would like to try to have a Mother's Day special, and we would like to honor the mothers. So if the two of you, if you don't have plans, I'm sure your lovely daughters would probably like to keep you to themselves. But if you would like to come back, we would definitely have you back to appear on our Mother's Day special.
Well, I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
would be
Except,
that would
yeah,
be such a joy and a pleasure because I love, hearing these young minds, Heather,
Yeah.
Andrew, and Rob, and BB. Y'all are fantastic. And
Thank you.
Judith, you are a gem also. I know that you would, and this has just been a delight and a pleasure. God bless all of you. Thank
Great.
you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. Thank you. And my final word on this, and I know you're going to agree with me, Barbara, is
Okay.
whatever else we've done in this world, how about those daughters? How about that?
Yes, they're
Yeah.
dynamic.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I've done best in this
Right.
world.
Thank
That
you.
Amen.
little girl. Thank
Andrew, do you
We're-
have any thoughts?
No, just thank you to the panel for coming on tonight. It was great hearing from both Judith and Barbara. We really appreciate you guys coming on, and we'll be back on Tuesday night with attorney Manny Alejandro and journalist Chris Tremolgi. And then on Thursday night from California, we have a 40-year retired firefighter on to talk about the wildfires and how they can fix the issue in California, firefighter John Cox. So we're looking forward to that Thursday night.
Oh, that's
Yes,
wonderful.
we'll have some other exciting guests coming on that we're working on, that we're trying to bring for our panel discussion. So stay tuned. Follow us on megamedia.org. You can always catch our show on YouTube, Facebook, Multicultural Conservative Foundation, and we're also on Spotify. Look for our After Dark with Rob and Andrew. So those are the different places you can find us. And again, as I've said before, please share the replay. Support each other. Barbara has a show on every Saturday at 3 p.m. Our Urban Story. It is a fantastic show, and I would definitely recommend that you all catch it and watch that particular show. So if there are no other comments,
Thank you.
good night. Have a great, safe, and blessed week. Thank you.
God
Thank you,
bless.
Rob.
Thank you.
Night.